I'm going to be talking about Gnosis chain specifically, but also a bit everything around Ethereum, as we are quite aligned. So we'll start with a small recap of Gnosis chain, go through Dencun, the previous hard fork, Pectra, the next one, and then the shutterized Gnosis beacon chain. So what is Gnosis chain? So a few people still don't know here, sadly, what Gnosis chain is, and basically it's well, a blockchain, very much like Ethereum, very similar to it. We also have a beacon chain. We go through the same hard forks. We have the same clients. So we have Netherminds, Aragon, Geth on the execution layer, Lighthouse, Teku, Lodestar, and Nimbus on the CL. And of course, we also focus on decentralization. A few differences are that we were a proof of authority network, so we went through the merge and removed all of that to kind of get to the same stack as Ethereum. So now we are pretty much aligned. Our staking token is GNO, which is an ERC20 token, so it's not the native token as for Ethereum, which in our case is XDAI. We have 5-second block times, which is quite a bit faster than Ethereum, and 16 slots per epoch, which is also half of Ethereum. So we have 2.4 times faster block times and 4.8 times faster finality. And for blobs, we have a bit less, but with block times, it basically, well, evens out with Ethereum. So for clients, I want to give a short update because a lot of them had good updates in the past months or so. So for example, Nethermind just released a whole new storage layout, which is much more efficient, and also enables SnapSync server, which is an awesome tech we didn't have on Gnosis chain before and allows well, nodes to be synced way, way faster. So we're talking less than an hour when previously it took around maybe a few days, depending if it's Nethermind or Aragon. Aragon also just released its final version 2 release or version, and is now fully focused on version 3, which will also come with state sync. So until now, Aragon was forced to download all blocks and headers and then sync from scratch, which of course took a long time. And with the new version, one of the objectives is to be able to just sync the states, very much like Geth and Nethermind. And then, maybe for the most astute of you, I talked about Geth in the previous slide, which was until now not available for Gnosis chain. But today I can probably say that it does actually work, thanks to Guillaume, who is sitting right here. Geth can sync from Genesis to tip. It's actually already running on validators on Gnosis chain on a few hundreds. It also comes with SnapSync server, so it will make the whole network faster once enough people adopt it. It's not quite ready yet, so there's a few things we are still working on internally. Of course, you could still already try it, but the public release will be available by end of summer. All right, Gnosis chain, of course, went through a few hard forks like Ethereum. So as you can see, since the beacon chain initially started, we did all the same hard forks as Ethereum. And for each hard fork, we got kind of quicker at it. And until Dencun, we were always a few months behind. But for Dencun, we actually hard forked 2 days prior to Ethereum. So we were technically the first mainnet blockchain with Dencun, which is awesome and a huge testament to our team and our ability to, well, stay in sync. So I want to thank Aragon and Nethermind, who did a fantastic job on this. But of course, none of this would have been possible without the EF, so big thanks to them as well. So the next steps are the shutterized beacon chain, which is a Gnosis-specific platform. I think Martin talked about this a bit earlier today. And Pectra, which is the upcoming hard fork for Ethereum, but also Gnosis chain. So I just want to go quickly through Dencun again, which is obviously the last hard fork. And the main feature was blobs, or war blobs. So as a quick reminder, they are ephemeral data that is deleted after around 18 days. That is not accessible by the EVM, so contracts cannot interact with the data. But for those caveats, you get much, much, much cheaper data. And interestingly enough, blobs have a separate fee market than transactions. So even if transactions get more expensive, assuming blobs are not well used enough, the price will actually stay quite low. And right now, they are still basically free on Ethereum, even mainnet. So it basically doesn't cost anything. So I want to encourage you to kind of play with blobs. And to that regard, we launched a website that is blob.fm, which is basically just a demo of what one can do with blobs. So they are just arbitrary data. So we kind of put radio on chain. They are 125 kilobytes of space. On Ethereum, you have 3 per block. On Gnosis chain, you have 1, but faster block. So basically, you can stream live audio on blobs, which is quite interesting. So on Blob.fm, you can listen to podcasts that are directly on chain, basically, in blobs. You can upload memes, and you can actually even do that straight from your browser. So yeah, I just want to encourage everyone to play with blobs as they are still free, even on mainnet. Of course, the main use case for them are layer 2 chains, but why not play with them a bit and have some fun? All right, so the next hard fork is Pectra. So this is the list of EIPs for now. Well, not even really, because last week, basically, they had the interrupt, the EF, so they changed everything. So this might not be entirely accurate. But anyways, I'm not going to go through most of them, because they are, I mean, a lot of them are kind of optimizations and things that are not really very important for the end user. But I'm still going to go through or quickly talk about account abstraction and EIPs or updates that are good for validators. So, well, actually, I'm going to kind of skip this one because, again, that's one of the ones that might change. But basically, there is this idea of giving more features to EOAs. And so this was one of the proposals, but it might be replaced by EIP 7702. So I don't really know. It's going to turn out, I mean, to be talked about maybe next Thursday on the All Core Devs. But if you want to learn more, I'm sure the Safe guys have more interesting things to say. So feel free to go to SafeCon sorry, in 2 days. All right, so going through the validator-specific EIPs. So EIP 7002, which is execution layer, triggable exits, whatever. Basically, currently, we have 2 different keys for validators. So the withdrawal credentials, which are technically the owner of the account. It can be a smart contract, in which case the smart contract defines who's the owner. But yeah, so it's basically the owner of the funds. And then the active key, which is used by validators to sign attestations and blocks and all of that. So currently, only the active key can trigger exits, meaning that if you have 2 different entities for the owner and the node runner, so imagine you have some ETH or GNO, and you give that to a staking provider, then the staking provider is the only one who can actually exit your GNO and make it so you get, or GNO or ETH in this case, and so you can get your stake back. This is kind of problematic. Of course, you already have to trust them quite a bit, but giving the owner the opportunity to exit by themselves makes it a bit more practical, basically. So this EIP gives this opportunity. So basically, it's good if you have staking providers. The next one, I think, is much more interesting, even than that. So it's EIP 7251, which aims to increase the max effective balance. So currently, if you want to validate on Ethereum or Gnosis chain, again, it's pretty much the same thing. You need 32 ETH. If you have a multiple of that, so let's say 3200 ETH, then you need to run 100 separate keys and validators. Of course, you can run these on the same client, but still they all have to sign attestations, sign blocks, transfer data on the P2P layer on networking, so it's quite inefficient and there's a lot of overhead. And the second issue is that you need a multiple of this. So imagine you have 63 ETH, well, you can only run 1 single validator. So in total, you only earn yield on maybe a bit more than 50% on the total amount of tokens you own. That's quite rigid and inefficient. This EIP actually solves both of these issues, meaning that we will be able to consolidate multiple validators into one, up to 64 validators for 1 single key. So from 32 ETH to 2048 or 1 to 64 GNO. So this will be much more efficient, but also you can stake any amount in between. So if you have 40 ETH, then you can just stake 40 ETH, and you will earn yield on those 40 ETH. So it's much more interesting. And then you can set at which point you actually get partial withdrawals. So imagine you have 40 ETH, but you can say, OK, I want to accumulate up until 50 ETH, so you don't get any like payments, dividends kind of on the execution layer, but it accumulates on the consensus layer, and you earn yield on that as well. So it's kind of auto-compounding, which I think is very interesting for solo node operators. So let's move on to the shardized beacon chain. So as mentioned, it's Gnosis chain specific project in this case. So not, well, it's not an Ethereum project, unlike Pectra and Dencun. So the premise is that we need shielded mempool, because we want to prevent MEV, sandwiching, front-running, all of that. We want it to be decentralized. So obviously, we already have solutions for this, like Flashbots or MEV blocker, but they are centralized, so you still give them all your raw transactions, and they can do whatever they want with it. And we want it to be censorship resistant. So why do we want it to be censorship resistant? Well, right now, still, I think 95%, almost 95% of all blocks are built by the 3 biggest builders on Ethereum, which is actually quite a bit worse than last year, because last year it was 90% for 4 builders. And obviously, well, it's much easier to censor 3 builders than the 1 million, or maybe more than 1 million validators that are currently active on Ethereum. Also, like giving all your transactions to centralized services is quite, like, it gives them a huge competitive advantage, because they have the transactions, they can still sandwich you, front-run you, whatever. It's just that normal people kind of cannot do it, so that's also not great. And sandwiching and front-running is still an issue for maybe new users who don't know what the slippage is and set data incorrectly, basically. So the general idea of the shardized beacon chain is that we basically want to encrypt transactions, post them to a sequencer contract, and then validators that are sharded enabled, so it's a specific set of validators that is not, I mean, all validators are not compatible with it by default. They will be able to decrypt those transactions, and then they have to put them at the very beginning of a block and in the right order given by the sequencer contract. So they don't have a choice of front-running or sandwiching. They cannot choose that. They have to follow the spec. And if not, well, then they get slashed or removed from the chain. So for this, we have a decentralized key of, well, a set of keepers, which are, well, they generate keys, basically decryption keys. So you can see on this graph, we have basically 3 entities, so the user who encrypts transactions, the keepers who generate the keys, and the proposer, which is a validator, so a normal Gnosis chain validator, but that is also sharded enabled. So you have to opt into that. And then while the users encrypt keys received by the, well, they use Ion keys. But basically, I mean, it doesn't really matter. It's a bit too complex to explain right now. But in the end, you have fully encrypted transactions on chain, and validators have to include them in the right order. So to implement this right now, as I said, it's opt-in. So validators have to register their normal Gnosis chain validator to become sharded enabled. They might have to add some, so that's not quite defined yet, but additional stake or do restaking for them to be slashable. But yeah, we're building the shardized beacon chain basically in steps. So right now that's not the case, but it might be the case in the future. So it comes with additional risks. If you don't follow the spec, then you get slashed. So that's why for now it's opt-in. And to make it easy, for now we also developed a proxy RPC server basically, so you can replace this in your MetaMask, and then that proxy will encrypt all your transactions. Because of course, I mean, ideally we want wallets to adopt the technology. It's not going to be the case realistically in the near future. So that's why this proxy exists. We are making one available to everyone today. Of course, if you use it, it's not much better than Flashbots because it's still a centralized service that still has your non-encrypted signed transactions. But in opposite, I mean, contrary to Flashbots, we actually made this software open source. You can run it yourself. So if you operate this node yourself and then replace it in MetaMask, you have end-to-end encrypted transactions that are fully safe. So this is a collaborative effort between Gnosis, Shutter, and Nethermind, who's spearheading the reference implementation. All right, so the current state of it is that we have the DKG itself. So that's by Shutter. They actually already use it for a few different products. We have a concrete specification. So that's on the GitHub Gnosis chain specs repo. We have deployed contracts. We have the RPC server, so the encryption server I just talked about, that is also already deployed. We have a working implementation by Nethermind. And we have work in progress on a decentralized application that will make it basically possible to encrypt transactions in your browser directly without having to use an encrypting RPC server or without having dApps natively support this technology. So basically what we have, well, is enough to launch a testnet. So we did, basically, and today you can actually already use the Shutterized beacon chain on Shadow, which is our testnet. And for more information, well, we have a workshop in 2 days at 2 p.m., I think, in the execution layer room in Studio 2. So there you will learn how to, well, do encrypted transactions, use the RPC server, maybe even how to spin up validators, although that might take a bit more time that we don't have. So yeah, I guess we will go through that, but it might, yeah, not be fully functional at the end of the workshop. All right, I think that's it for me. Here are a few useful links for Gnosis in general. You can always find us on Telegram, Discord, Twitter, whatever. You can always hit me up also if you have any questions. And that's it for me. Thank you for listening. So yeah, I think we have some time for a few questions, if anyone wants to.
And yeah, we have time, about 5 minutes for questions if anybody wants to ask them. Oh, yeah, here we go.
Quick question. Thanks for the presentation, very interesting. At launch, will all execution clients support the Shutterized beacon chain?
That's an excellent question, and I'm afraid not. So for now, only Nethermind has a reference implementation. One idea, because implementing this in all clients might not be fully realistic, but one idea is to have builders that are specifically Shutter enabled, so you could point any of your validators to one of those builders. Of course, this would be, again, centralized, but of course, we would also release this, again, open source, so you could run your own builder, which, with your validator, basically, would then run with any clients.
Thanks.
You have to go more inside.
Great, and any other questions? Yeah, up in the front.
Yeah, with Shutter, clearly, like Gnosis is trying to go a bit independent compared to Ethereum, which is a good thing because Ethereum, went through the roll-up centric roadmap to say let's foster innovation on at the L2 level and kind of ossify the base chain. At least that's the plan, right? First, because the base chain, the L1 at L1 we keep innovating, and second, L2 is having a hard time. Or maybe not a hard time, but is a bit shy about innovating and find itself locked out of the EVM as other L2s would keep compatibility, like 100% compatibility with the base chain. And therefore, yeah, there's a bit of a chance that they would lose market share this way. Is Gnosis interested in trying to keep innovating and maybe break the full compatibility with Ethereum?
That's also an excellent question, thank you. So we definitely want to innovate. This is one of those projects. There is actually another one which DappLion is going to present, I think, in half an hour or an hour, I'm not quite sure, in this room as well. But for Shutter, so we don't really want to break the spec for Ethereum because that would be a ton of work to kind of fork off again. So we had this before with proof of authority, which was a whole different thing. So we really want to standardize basically Gnosis chain to be identical to Ethereum as much as possible. So Shutter we actually built as a kind of plug-in architecture because obviously this is on the consensus layer side. that would mean that if we kind of enshrined it in the protocol, we would have to update all the consensus layer clients. We currently support 4 of them. A 5th one should come soon, so that would be like 5 different languages, 5 different teams that implement all of this in those clients. So that would not be very realistic, I would say. So for now, we kind of build this as a plugin architecture without breaking anything, kind of like what EigenLayer is doing, or this type of project. So we don't want to break Ethereum and very much want to stay in line, at least for now, while still innovating as much as we can.
Lovely. OK, and we have time for one final quick question. So up at the front here.
Fantastic talk. So what's the point of blobs and Gnosis? Because the main, for Ethereum, it's like rollups, but on Gnosis now, I don't see any use cases.
Right. Well, I mean, the objective is the same, right? So, blobs are on Ethereum. The objective was to have L2s. But as mentioned with BroadFM, you can do any other type of things or projects with it. But of course, on Gnosis chain, we will actually also have rollups. Probably a third of Gnosis Pay, which is which will need a lot of transactions per second. So they will launch rollups on Gnosis chain because they are in the Gnosis chain ecosystem. But in the end, it's basically the same objectives. On Ethereum, you have L2s for Ethereum. On Gnosis chain, we would have L2s for Gnosis chain.
Great. I think we should wrap it there, and we can take a 2-minute break. So thank you, Philip.
Thank you.